Picture a sold-out arena buzzing with energy. Spotlights sweep across the crowd. Cameras glide over rows of eager faces. People didn't just show up for a show. They showed up for a moment. Two martial arts icons are scheduled to share the same stage, and everyone senses there's history there. The host builds the introduction slowly. Accomplishments, titles, years of dominance. The crowd reacts to each name with loud cheers, but there's a different tone behind each reaction. Some clap out of admiration. Others clap out of loyalty. Chuck Norris walks out first. Relaxed posture, easy confidence, the kind of presence that doesn't need theatrics. He waves once, almost casually. The arena responds instantly. There's familiarity in the applause. He looks comfortable under pressure, like he's done this 1,000 times. Then Steven Seagal steps into the light. Slower, measured, focused. The energy shifts again. The cheers are just as loud, but the feeling is different. Less playful, more curious. People lean forward slightly in their seats. They're not sure what's about to happen, but they don't want to miss it. For a few seconds, both men stand on opposite sides of the stage. No words yet, just presence. The cameras zoom in. The giant screens above the arena show close-ups of calm expressions and steady eyes. The host makes a light comment about different fighting philosophies, a harmless comparison at first. The crowd laughs softly. Chuck smiles. Steven remains still. Then comes the line. A casual remark, a playful jab aimed at Aikido. It's framed as humor, the kind that sounds friendly on the surface. The crowd reacts immediately. Some laugh louder, a few gasp. Most just wait to see what happens next. Chuck's grin lingers. Steven doesn't react right away. No eye roll, no visible frustration, no defensive body language, just stillness. And that's when something subtle happens. The laughter doesn't fully settle. It hangs in the air, unfinished. People start glancing around, sensing there's more beneath the surface. Because when pride, legacy, and reputation share the same stage, even a small joke can carry weight. And in that arena, everyone suddenly realizes this might not stay light for long. The laughter from the crowd lingers for a few seconds longer than it should. Chuck Norris keeps the microphone in his hand, relaxed, almost amused. He repeats the joke in a slightly different way, leaning into it just enough to make it clear. This wasn't accidental. It was intentional, still playful, still polished, but intentional. He talks about strength, about direct power, about techniques that look simple and decisive. His tone never turns aggressive. In fact, that's what makes it sharper. It sounds casual, effortless, like he's just stating an opinion everyone already agrees with. The audience reacts again, though not as loudly this time. On the other side of the stage, Steven Seagal hasn't moved much. His posture remains upright, hands relaxed at his sides, face neutral. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't force a smile either. The camera catches his expression on the giant screen above them. Calm, focused, unreadable. Chuck glances over still, smiling, and adds one more light remark about Aikido being soft compared to more direct systems. He chuckles into the microphone, giving the audience permission to laugh again. Some do, but others hesitate. Because now it feels different. It's no longer just a comparison of styles. It feels like a public challenge, subtle but unmistakable. Not a demand for a fight, not a heated confrontation, just a line drawn in front of thousands of witnesses. The host shifts slightly, sensing the tension. He tries to smooth it over with a neutral comment about different paths leading to the same goal. It sounds diplomatic, safe, but the energy has already shifted. Steven finally takes a small step forward, not toward Chuck aggressively, just forward enough to claim his space. The movement is slow and deliberate, the kind that makes people pay attention without raising alarm. The arena quiets a little more. Steven reaches for the second microphone placed on a stand nearby. He doesn't rush. He doesn't react emotionally. He adjusts it calmly, as if this is just another conversation. Chuck lowers his mic slightly, watching. There's no hostility on either face. But there's awareness now. Two professionals, fully conscious that every word from here on will carry weight. Steven doesn't open with a defense. He doesn't deny the joke. He simply looks out at the crowd first, scanning the arena as if measuring the atmosphere. Then, he turns his attention back toward Chuck. The silence stretches, not long enough to be uncomfortable, just long enough to matter. The crowd feels it, that invisible shift where humor starts to transform into something else, something heavier, something that demands composure. This isn't shouting, this isn't theatrics, it's something quieter, a public test of respect. And everyone in that arena knows the next few words will decide whether this remains friendly banter or becomes something far more serious. For a moment, nothing happens. Steven holds the microphone, but he doesn't speak right away. The delay isn't dramatic, it isn't exaggerated, it's controlled. He simply allows the room to settle on its own. The last few scattered laughs fade into the ceiling. You can feel it now, that subtle tightening in the air. The kind that doesn't show up on camera but settles in people's shoulders. Conversations in the crowd stop. Even the host steps slightly back, sensing that this is no longer his moment to manage. Steven finally speaks. His voice is even, calm. Not raised, not defensive. He doesn't address the joke directly. He doesn't call it disrespectful. He doesn't challenge Chuck. Instead, he talks about philosophy, about why different systems exist, about how some arts focus on force meeting force while others focus on redirecting energy. No sarcasm, no edge, just clarity. And that's what changes everything. Because when someone answers humor with calm certainty, the power dynamic shifts. The crowd expected one of two things, either a laugh-it-off response or visible irritation. They got neither. They got composure. Steven continues, explaining that not every technique is designed to look impressive. Some are designed to end a situation quickly and efficiently. He speaks about discipline, about restraint, about understanding timing instead of relying on raw strength. The arena is completely quiet now. Chuck listens closely. The grin from earlier softens, not disappearing, but adjusting. He nods slightly, as if acknowledging that this has become more serious than expected. Steven doesn't rush his words. He leaves small pauses between sentences. Not long enough to drag, just long enough to let each idea land. You can almost feel the audience recalibrating in real time. They came for entertainment, for playful rivalry, for quick jokes. Instead, they're watching a masterclass in control. Steven turns slightly toward Chuck, still composed. He speaks about respect between practitioners, about how every style has purpose, about how mockery, even playful, can sometimes misunderstand that purpose. It's not an accusation, it's an observation. And because he never raises his tone, no one can accuse him of escalating. That's what makes it powerful. A few audience members begin nodding. The mood has shifted from amusement to attention. People lean forward. Phones that were recording casually are now held steadier. Chuck lifts his microphone again, ready to respond. But this time, his posture is different. More squared, more engaged. He isn't joking now. He's responding to a conversation. He acknowledges Steven's point but lightly reiterates his belief in direct power. His tone is respectful yet firm. There's no hostility, just two strong viewpoints meeting in the open. And then something subtle happens. The crowd stops reacting entirely. No cheers, no laughter, no commentary, just silence. Not uncomfortable. Silence. Focused silence. The kind that only happens when everyone realizes they're witnessing something real. This is no longer about who is stronger. It's about philosophy, about identity, about what each man represents in the martial arts world. Steven lowers his mic slightly, holding eye contact. Chuck does the same. No one is backing down. but no one is attacking either. The tension isn't explosive, it's contained, and contained tension is often stronger than chaos. From the outside, it might look calm. Two men standing on a stage having a measured discussion. But inside that arena, every person can feel it. The invisible line that was drawn with a joke has now turned into a quiet test of presence. The energy has shifted completely. What started as humor has become something deeper, and everyone knows the next move won't be about words anymore. The silence holds. Steven lifts the microphone again, but this time his voice is even steadier. There's no trace of irritation, no attempt to outshine. He speaks the way someone does when they don't feel threatened. He explains that real control isn't about overpowering someone, it's about understanding timing, distance, intention. He says that strength has its place, but so does precision, so does patience. The words aren't flashy, they're simple, direct, almost quiet, and that quietness pulls the audience in closer. He gestures gently with one hand, illustrating how movement doesn't have to collide head-on. Sometimes it redirects, sometimes it absorbs and returns. He makes it clear that softness doesn't mean weakness, it means efficiency. Chuck listens without interrupting. For the first time tonight, there's no grin, no playful smirk, just focus. Steven continues explaining that the goal of any martial art isn't domination, it's resolution, ending conflict quickly, with minimal damage if possible. He emphasizes control over ego, balance over brute force. There's no defensive energy in his posture, no squared shoulders, no aggressive stance. He stands relaxed, feet planted naturally, hands loose. It's not the stance of someone preparing to fight. It's the stance of someone who already feels grounded. The audience shifts in their seats. You can sense their expectations adjusting. They thought this might escalate into a heated rivalry. Instead, they're watching a display of restraint. Steven turns slightly toward Chuck, not confrontationally, but conversationally. He says that different systems were built for different contexts. Some are designed for spectacle, others for subtlety. Some prioritize impact, others prioritize leverage. He never says one is better. He never says one is superior. He simply states that dismissing an art because it looks different misses the deeper mechanics behind it. The arena is so quiet now you could hear someone clear their throat from the back rows. Chuck nods once, slowly. When he raises his microphone, his tone is noticeably measured. He says he respects any system that produces results. He admits that every art has strengths and limitations. The exchange no longer feels like a challenge. It feels like two professionals testing ideas in real time. Steven takes a small step closer, not invading space, just closing distance enough to make the moment more intimate. He lowers the microphone and gestures toward Chuck's arm lightly, asking if he'd be willing to illustrate something simple. The crowd inhales collectively. There's no dramatic music, no hype, just anticipation. Chuck agrees with a calm nod. Steven places a light grip on Chuck's wrist, gentle, almost casual. He explains what he's about to show before doing anything. Timing, balance, redirection, then it happens. In one smooth motion, Steven shifts his weight. There's no explosive speed, no aggressive yank, just a subtle turn of the hips and a precise adjustment of angle. Chuck's balance changes instantly, not violently, not embarrassingly, just enough to demonstrate the point. Chuck regains his footing immediately, steady and composed. There's no loss of dignity, no exaggerated stumble, but the message is clear. Control doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks effortless. The crowd doesn't erupt. They don't cheer wildly. They just watch, stunned by how small the movement was and how effective it appeared. Steven releases his grip immediately. He steps back to his original spot, hands relaxed again. No celebration, no raised arms, no "I told you so." He simply explains what the audience just saw, how leverage replaced force, how alignment replaced aggression, how the technique wasn't about overpowering but about guiding momentum. Chuck rubs his wrist lightly and smiles. Not the earlier playful grin, but a respectful acknowledgement. He nods again, this time more clearly. The energy in the arena shifts once more, but this time it isn't tense. It's respectful. The crowd begins to applaud, not loudly at first, slowly, thoughtfully, the kind of applause that grows because people recognize skill, not spectacle. Steven lowers the microphone and gives a small nod toward Chuck, acknowledging him as a partner in the demonstration rather than an opponent. There's no rivalry in his expression, only composure, and in that composure, the earlier joke feels distant, smaller, almost irrelevant. What remains isn't mockery, it's clarity, because in a room full of noise, control without force just proved louder than any punchline. The applause fades into a low murmur, but the energy doesn't drop. It sharpens. Steven steps back to the center of the stage, calm as ever. Chuck stands opposite him, posture squared but relaxed. There's no hostility between them, just awareness, the kind that only comes from years of discipline. The host senses what the audience wants and gestures lightly. Maybe one more example. The crowd reacts instantly, not chaotic but eager. They're no longer waiting for jokes. They're waiting for proof. Steven nods once. No dramatic buildup. No exaggerated stance. He adjusts his jacket slightly, then looks at Chuck with a quiet question in his eyes. Chuck gives a small nod back. Agreement, consent, respect. Steven explains, briefly, that he'll demonstrate timing under pressure. He asks Chuck to attempt a simple grab, nothing complicated, just a straightforward movement. Chuck steps in. It happens quickly, but not so fast that the audience misses it. Chuck reaches forward with controlled intent. Steven doesn't retreat. He doesn't brace. He pivots. A shift of angle, a redirection of momentum. Chuck's forward movement turns sideways almost instantly. His balance changes, not violently, not theatrically, just enough to show how leverage works when applied precisely. The entire motion takes less than 2 seconds, but the silence afterward stretches much longer. Steven releases immediately. No lingering hold, no follow-through. He steps back to neutral position. The crowd doesn't react at first. They're processing, because what they just saw didn't rely on size, speed, or aggression. It relied on positioning, on timing measured in fractions of a second. Chuck resets his stance, this time with a more focused expression. There's no embarrassment, no frustration. If anything, there's curiosity. Steven offers another variation. He explains that real application happens when you least expect it, when balance is already compromised. Chuck steps in again, this time slightly faster. Steven waits half a heartbeat longer before moving. Another pivot, another controlled redirection. This time, Chuck's momentum carries him a step farther before he regains footing. Still composed, still steady, but undeniably redirected. You can feel it now. The arena isn't just watching two men move. They're watching principles unfold in real time. No flashy strikes, no dramatic throws, just subtle, efficient mechanics. Steven speaks again, briefly explaining how force met directly with force often creates resistance, but guiding force creates imbalance. His tone never shifts from calm, no triumph, no boast, just demonstration. The audience begins applauding, not explosively, but steadily. The kind of applause that grows because people understand what they're seeing. Chuck nods again, this time more openly. He raises his microphone and acknowledges the precision. He says something short about experience and control. And for the first time tonight, there's no tension left in his voice, only respect. Steven looks out at the crowd for a moment. The silence that follows feels intentional now, not accidental. Then he says something simple. Technique is only theory until it's applied, and that line hangs in the air, because everyone just witnessed application. No special effects, no exaggerated reactions, Just timing, balance, and discipline displayed without noise. The atmosphere in the arena changes completely. Earlier, people were waiting for rivalry, for confrontation, for ego. Now they're witnessing mutual recognition. Two masters from different systems sharing space without hostility. The demonstration ends not with a dramatic pose, but with both men stepping back and facing the audience side by side. No winner declared. No loser exposed, just clarity. And in that clarity, something becomes obvious to everyone in the room. Skill doesn't need volume. It doesn't need mockery. It doesn't even need explanation once it's been seen. The arena falls into a final wave of applause, stronger than before but different. It's not fueled by spectacle. It's fueled by understanding. Steven lowers his microphone one last time. Chuck gives a small, genuine smile. And the moment that began with humor has transformed into something much quieter and much heavier, because now the crowd isn't debating styles anymore. They're remembering what they just saw, and maybe that was the point all along. Do you think skill speaks louder when it's shown instead of explained? The applause rolls through the arena, steady and sustained. It's no longer the loud, playful cheering from earlier. This time it feels earned, measured, intentional. Chuck steps forward slightly, lifting his microphone. He waits for the crowd to settle before speaking. There's no trace of the earlier teasing tone. His voice carries a different weight now, grounded, thoughtful. He acknowledges what everyone just witnessed: precision, timing, control. He admits that seeing something up close changes perspective, not dramatically, not in a way that dismisses his own philosophy, but enough to show openness. The audience listens carefully. Steven stands calmly beside him, hands relaxed. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't capitalize on the moment. He simply gives Chuck the space to speak. That gesture alone shifts the atmosphere again, because this is no longer about proving anything. It's about recognition. Chuck turns slightly toward Steven and extends his hand. Not rushed, not forced. A deliberate gesture of respect. For a brief second, the arena goes quiet again. Then Steven steps forward and accepts it. Firm handshake. Steady eye contact. No exaggerated smiles. No staged theatrics. Just mutual acknowledgement. The crowd erupts, louder than at any point tonight. But the noise feels different now. It's not fueled by rivalry or spectacle. It's fueled by closure. The earlier tension dissolves completely. The host steps back into the frame, visibly relieved, making a light comment about how this is what martial arts is truly about: learning, adapting, evolving. The crowd nods along. Chuck lowers his microphone and adds one more statement. He says that true mastery isn't about dismissing other paths. It's about understanding them. He mentions that every system has depth that outsiders don't always see. There's humility in his tone. Steven responds briefly, thanking Chuck for being open to the demonstration. He says that different styles sharpen each other when approached with respect instead of comparison. No grand speeches, no dramatic declarations. Just professionals speaking from experience. The two men stand side by side now, no longer positioned across from each other. The physical distance between them earlier symbolized contrast. Now their alignment signals unity. Cameras flash across the arena. People rise to their feet. The energy in the room feels lighter, but stronger at the same time. Earlier, the crowd leaned forward expecting conflict. Now they're standing because they witnessed resolution. And resolution, when it's earned, carries more weight than confrontation ever could. Chuck gives Steven a final nod, smaller than the handshake, but just as meaningful. Steven returns it. No rivalry narrative, no winner declared, just two accomplished individuals who challenged each other publicly and left with mutual respect intact. As they prepare to exit the stage, the applause continues, not because something explosive happened, but because something controlled did. The lesson isn't spoken outright, but it's clear. Strength without respect creates division. Strength with respect creates understanding. The lights dim slightly as they walk toward opposite sides of the stage, but there's no sense of separation anymore. The earlier joke feels distant, almost irrelevant compared to what followed. By the time the event moves on to the next segment, the arena isn't talking about mockery. They're talking about composure, about humility, about how quickly a room can shift when ego steps aside. And that's how the night ends. Not with tension, not with drama, but with respect rewritten in front of thousands. Because sometimes the most powerful statement isn't the challenge, it's the handshake that follows. By the time the lights brighten and the event moves forward, the atmosphere inside the arena feels completely different from how it started. Earlier, people were buzzing with anticipation, expecting tension, maybe even confrontation. Now conversations sound thoughtful, measured. Groups of spectators lean toward each other, replaying the demonstration in quiet detail. It's not the joke they're discussing anymore. It's the silence that followed it. It's the moment the laughter faded. It's the shift from teasing to testing. Outside the arena, social media clips begin circulating almost immediately. Short segments of the demonstration, the handshake, the nod. But what stands out in every video isn't aggression or dominance, it's composure. Commentators online debate technique. Some favor direct power, others admire redirection and balance. But beneath all the opinions, one thing stays consistent. Both men handled the moment without ego spiraling out of control. That's what people remember, not who stepped first, not who moved faster, but who stayed grounded. Backstage, the tone reportedly remains calm. No heated exchanges, no unresolved friction, just professionals who understand that public moments can either divide or elevate, and tonight, they chose elevation. The audience carries that feeling home, because what they witnessed wasn't a clash. It was a recalibration, a public reminder that strength doesn't have to shout, that confidence doesn't have to belittle, that experience speaks loudest when it stays steady under pressure. In the days that follow, interviews reflect the same theme. Both men speak about discipline, about learning from each other, about how martial arts is bigger than individual styles. There's no dramatic narrative pushed, no rivalry storyline extended, just acknowledgement. And that acknowledgement shifts how the entire night is remembered. What began as a playful jab turned into a masterclass in restraint. What could have become competitive tension transformed into mutual recognition. And maybe that's why the arena fell silent when it did, because people instinctively recognize when ego steps aside and respect takes its place. The real takeaway wasn't technical. It was psychological. Two strong personalities shared a stage. A comment tested the air, a demonstration clarified the point. And a handshake closed the loop. No chaos, no spectacle, just presence. And that presence lingered long after the lights dimmed. If you were in that arena, would you have seen it as rivalry or mutual respect in real time? That question stays with people. Because sometimes what we witness depends less on what happens and more on what we choose to see. And on that night, thousands of people saw something shift, not in volume, not in force, but in understanding.